Huh? There. Oh. Huh? Durr.
Hey now, and welcome down to KCToyreviews. We are here today with The Boss Man by SooSoo Toys, aka Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin from the hit Netflix series Daredevil. And of course, the Kingpin has made his official MCU debut within Hawkeye, so I am very excited to have this version of the Kingpin officially on my shelf. And I am happy to report this is one badass piece, especially the head sculpt. So, as always, let's go ahead, fine-comb those details, hold each other's hands tight, and dive right the hell goddamn in. Alright, so there we have it. The Kingpin by SooSoo Toys. Now, again, for those that don't know, this Kingpin is based off the Netflix Vincent D'Onofrio version, aka one of the most spectacular performances of an MCU villain to date. We are very lucky as fans to have Vincent continue this role in the upcoming Echo series and beyond. And of course, through the lens, the first thing I do is almost chuckle because this head sculpt is ridiculous. It's absolutely fantastic, and SooSoo has knocked it out of the park. I am one of the biggest critiques of head sculpt. I think about 90% of them are crap, if not in the 6 or lower category. And I would say this is one of the best ones I have seen in recent memory. And of course, in recent memory, and I forget what the thing is called again, the Underground King, I believe. That was the most recent quote-unquote Kingpin that a company made, and the thing was like a goddamn monster. SooSoo now swoops in, gives us a proper scaled Kingpin, an amazing head sculpt, and of course, based off of Vincent D'Onofrio, we cannot go wrong. And on top of all that, like a cherry on top of your sundae, this is based off of the classic white suit Kingpin straight from the comics. As fans, we couldn't ask for more. And to have this on our shelves is an absolute treat, especially for the price point. And I will get this side by side with a Spider-Man and Daredevil later, but again, I just want to stress this is one big bad boy. Now, before we zoom out and take a look at the beautiful tailoring done by SooSoo, let's take one last glimpse at this absolutely amazing head sculpt. Now, the likeness of Vincent D'Onofrio to me is there. This thing looks fantastic, because the paint application is absolutely beautiful. There's depth, there's layers, there's shadowing. The skin has a slight texture to it, and there's just a gradient of tones throughout this head sculpt that absolutely kills it. And of course, on top of this beautiful head sculpt, we have a bloodied head sculpt. So take a look at this thing. And same thing, just absolutely fantastic paint application. The blood looks really nice, a slight glisten to some of that blood on there, but just an absolute stellar job on both of these head sculpts. And in my opinion, I might say probably some of the best I've ever seen on third-party head sculpts in a long time. As I'm twirling the one on the left, that one on the right is like looking at me right now. So I feel creepy, like I'm gonna have nightmares tonight. That thing is straight up looking at me right now. Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on the tailoring because it's pretty straightforward. I mean, it's a white suit. However, I just want to stress it is beautifully done, expertly tailored, great proportions on everything from the pockets to the buttons. There is no messy strings or anything hanging off anywhere. And then it just has a really nice silky glisten to this suit. It is just really, really fantastically done. And again, kudos to the team over there, because second to the head sculpt, this suit is fantastic. And it might just be a small area of the suit, but the contrast of the suit and the red rose is absolutely stellar. Even the rose has a nice paint application with some slight shadowing around it. It is not just a straight up red 3D printed rose that's thrown on there. There is attention to detail in every single part of this figure. And while we're in shot, we might as well note that I'm probably not going to show every single hand that came with this guy, because that ends up being really boring to me. But if you note and take a look at that left hand there is a bloody knuckle on him. Every single pair of hand that came with this guy did have blood on it. It's nothing that I'm going to gripe about too much, but it's something worth noting that there were no clean pairs of hands that came with this guy. And before we go to the next shot, might as well just do it real quick. You do have this really nice diamond-tipped cane that came with this guy. Nothing really too fancy. In fact, in my opinion, this probably has the worst paint application out of everything on there, especially the gold top there. But the diamond looks decent. I wouldn't say it has necessarily any decent weight, but not too many complaints. The fact that they included that cane is stellar. And I don't want to toot my horn too much, but if we go back to the original post of this guy, I absolutely left a comment on there that I was shocked that there was no cane included, and they responded that they were going to put a cane. SooSoo, or everybody out there, how the hell are you going to have a Kingpin with no cane? I mean, that is just the iconic part of Kingpin. So I am very glad they ended up giving him a cane, because when we pair that with the white suit, the fantastic head sculpt, it just really brings everything together perfectly. And of course, if you want to pair with your bloody head sculpt, you do have a bloody shirt option. And of course, there's a little finagling getting everything off there, but if you want, you can go with a full bloodied version of Kingpin, and it's pretty fantastic that they even included an extra set like this. I'm not going to spend too much time down here. They included a branded stand. You see the Daredevil logo there. If you are a fan or collect SooSoo 16, then you are familiar with the stand that's included there. They always include that very stereotypical graded stand there, branded a little bit different each time and painted a little bit different, but they always include this stand, and I am actually kind of a fan of it. I don't mind it. I think it's a decent quality. And again, the fact that it's branded is something that I do like. There are companies out there that are branding the stands with their company name versus the figure that they're basing off of, which is absolutely embarrassing. So kudos to SooSoo. They keep this immersive. They keep the Daredevil logo branded on that stand. And of course, the fact that there's a stand included is absolutely fantastic. And of course, lastly, before we zoom out, one thing to note, the shoes and the ankle, fantastic articulation. Nothing really to brag about, just kind of a glossy white shoe on this guy. In fact, it's not like a huge gripe. I would say, again, second to the cane, that would probably be the worst part of the figure. They are very simple looking. I think a slight shading or something could have added a little bit more texture and depth to those shoes, because they look straight up off the 3D printer and just kind of this straight gloss white. But the eyes are going to focus more at the top point and the fantastic head sculpt on this guy. So again, it's nothing to gripe about too much, just something worth noting. Alright, and then before we start to wrap this video up, just so you have an understanding of scale and the size of this guy, I had to throw Daredevil and Spider-Man in there because, in my opinion, when I think of Kingpin, I think of either Spider-Man or Daredevil. Those are the two that he is always battling the most, and be it that these three dwell in New York City, it is just an absolute iconic pairing to have these three together. I literally get goosebumps as I see these three side by side with one another. And as I mentioned several times, SooSoo killed it with the scale on this guy. He slightly towers over them. However, he is not in that insane quarter scale category, as the last quote-unquote 1/6 scale Kingpin, the Underground King, was released. And of course, as I mentioned a couple times, SooSoo killed it with the scale on this guy. He is beefy, he is big, he is taller than his enemies, Daredevil and Spider-Man. However, he does not tower over them. It's an appropriate height, it's menacing, and it looks absolutely awesome. And there we have it, The Boss Man by SooSoo Toys, aka Vincent D'Onofrio's amazing Kingpin character that is now in the MCU. I absolutely cannot wait to see what's next for this character, and we are blessed to have an amazing actor portraying this iconic character. And of course, as we start to round this out, we do need to stress SooSoo killed it with this head sculpt. One of the best head sculpts I've seen in a long time. And in fact, the first thing that comes to mind is the Tamora Morrison Boba Fett head sculpt. I mean, that was absolutely amazing. This really goes side by side with that head sculpt. The tailoring is amazing. The likeness is amazing. The proportion, the size. I mean, they really just knocked it out of the park with this piece. Now, we do need to note, as far as articulation, I am not one of those guys that'll sit there bending the legs back and forth. Those parts of videos and reviews absolutely make me cringe. However, I usually will note a little bit about articulation. So on this guy, the top half seems to be single joints, which might be a little disappointing, but given the size of this guy, who he is, what he does in the show, there is no disappointment on my part. I wouldn't be posing him in any crazy poses. He's a very stiff, slow-moving character as it is. But we do have single-jointed elbows, down below, double-jointed knees. So the articulation is nothing to necessarily rave about, but at the same time, it's nothing to gripe about. This is the Kingpin. You'll be able to pose him the way the Kingpin is. And no matter what pose you have this guy in, he is going to look stellar next to your other MCU/Marvel characters on the shelf. Not a crazy amount of accessories, but as I noted before, it's awesome that they gave us an extra shirt, a bloodied up version, and an extra head sculpt, which is also bloodied up. So if you want to go clean or if you want to go bloodied, you do have those two options. You have the included cane and then a few pairs of hands. And of course, last but not least, a branded stand. So with all that said, I think it is a perfect time to swing into a score on this guy. And what comes to mind is an 8.7 out of 10. I mean, this is like going to a Robert Irvine or Gordon Ramsay restaurant. It's a very simple figure. However, it's elegant. It's done right. The proportions are done right. The head sculpt is done right. There's not a ton of choice with it, but because of that, sometimes less is more. And I will say, in my opinion, it'll probably be a long time before another company does a Kingpin. I highly doubt Hot Toys has one in their pipeline, because even if they announce one with his next appearance, you're probably 2 to 3 years away from making that to your shelves. So this guy is an absolute must. At an 8.7, if you're an MCU fan, if you're a Daredevil fan, Spider-Man, Kingpin, you would be nuts not to pick this guy up. He's going to skyrocket in price. He is going to sell out for sure. So I do recommend picking this figure up, especially at the price point, the size, the included stand, and accessories. You cannot go wrong with this figure. Vincent D'Onofrio is a stellar actor, and SooSoo killed it with his likeness. And pair that all with Kingpin being one of the most iconic MCU villains of all time, well, we are blessed to have this guy on our shelves. So, with all that said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up here today at KC Toys. With the Kingpin rounding out at 8.7 out of 10, I cannot wait to see what's next. Vincent D'Onofrio, no more Netflix. Did he really get shot, or is he going to have a patch over his eye? See you guys next time! But oh shit!
Huh?